Hi, and welcome to this special Christmas edition of Micronaut Monday. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, and Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, The Adventures of Adam Star and the Solar Legion. I'm also hard at work on the new superhero comic book WITCHMAN, which recently had a successful Kickstarter campaign. It's the 46th anniversary of that magical Christmas of 1977 when Bill Mantlow's son opened up his Christmas presents and found a cache of Micronauts figures. Not necessarily these ones you see in front of you, but an assortment of figures. And as Bill and his son played with these toys, the wheels started turning in Bill's mind. And as a writer at Marvel Comics, he started weaving a storyline around these figures, a sort of story that was suggested by, their look and the things implied by their design. And he went on to pitch this story to Marvel Comics, and it went through a number of drafts with a number of artists considered to work on the series with him, one of whom being Jack Kirby. Eventually, Michael Golden got the job, and the two of them together created just an amazing piece of comic book mythology. And here's a little glimpse of maybe, what might have been for Micronauts if not for that magical Christmas. As many of you probably already know, the Micronauts line of toys was an adaptation of Tomi Takara's Microman or Microman line of toys. Prior to the Micronauts Marvel comic book, there was a Microman manga. This is volume 1. You get a sense of what that storyline is. Reading this, I enjoyed it quite a bit, but it made me appreciate what Bill Mantlo and Michael Golden did so much the more. Now this is just a beautiful book. I love the color and the printing, and the artwork is beautiful, and it is interesting getting like another glimpse of these situations and characters, seeing, Biotron with his, little case and somebody sitting in there, and then, these various sort of generic Microman figures. This one looks like his little torso piece matches up with Time Travelers. That must be who he is. And it also makes me think about, some of the early iterations of the Micronauts comic before Michael Golden came on board. Michael Golden brought so much to the table. He really is an equal partner in that comic, if not more so. He just sort of brought a humanity to things. Bill Mantlow's conception, based on some of the early concept art and some of Golden's description of the sort of scripts he was working with, it gives the impression that it was a little colder, a little closer to the toys than what the series ended up being, and a little closer to what we see here. So, the comic itself is pretty interesting. Really nice little design flourishes throughout. And we get a sort of approaching danger in the form of the Acroyer, who, if you watch some of the old Microman commercials, which I highly recommend, they're really terrific. And my work on Transformers versus G.I. Joe, the research that I did kind of led me down this rabbit hole of Henshin, Cyborg, and Microman, and trying to find a sort of common ancestor between the Transformers and G.I. Joe, and a common shared history was one of my premises. And when you study the toys, you see that it really is there, that the large G.I. Joe toys became the basis for Henshin Cyborg, and the Henshin Cyborg was shrunken down and became Microman, and then Microman sort of split off into two segments, one being these sort of, transforming Microman robots, and then into sort of like a sub-brand called Diaclone, which then parts of both of those became the basis for the Transformers. The history is intertwined, and so that sort of sent me down the pathway of investigating these things. And yeah, the commercials are just really amazing. And so we see this Acroyer robot, causing all kinds of terror in the city, and then shrinking back down into its sort of toy size. And there's a little meeting trying to figure out what to do about all this destruction. And There's a little boy whose father is working on some sort of laser or something, and he finds these crystals, brings them home, and puts them under the laser. And when they melt, they reveal these little chambers, and inside are the Micromen. And they're sort of drawn, not with the kind of like silver surfer kind of faces that the Microman toys have, but these sort of more, like human faces and human hair. And they tell them their story, something. Again, I can't read Japanese, so I'm just, going by the sort of pantomime. Planet was destroyed, and they escaped in these crystals in these little survival chambers. And now they're, here with this kid, and I'm assuming to sort of, continue their war against the Acroyer here on Earth. And also, it looks like when danger approaches, when there's fear of them becoming discovered, then they can go into this sort of hibernation mode where they then, they do become sort of silvery and metallic and sort of get the dead eyes that the toys have. And then when the danger is past, when mom leaves the room, then they can, get back to their fleshy selves. This comic is a lot of fun. The fights with the various Acroyer threats are pretty great, and I really do like the artwork. It's these Micromen, they need raw materials in order to take on the Acroyer, and so they go through his toy collection and his his transistor radio and strip it for parts to make this sort of micro base and create all the various toys. It is also really nice seeing these nice illustrations of the various toy sets. I recognize most of them. I don't know that I've ever seen this toy. The story from here, and then this nice little touch. They all have their various vehicles, and then they're able to shrink this boy down and allow him to ride in the chest pod of Robot X, I think he's called, or Robot Man. But who, is known from the Marvel Comics as Biotron. He gets to sort of ride around in that as a vehicle and fight alongside the Micromen. And this comic reminds me a lot of the Transformers manga, where, the mythology isn't as deep and rich as, we're accustomed to with Micronauts or with Transformers. It's kind of, simplified for a sort of, episodic manga. I mean, these appeared, serialized, and then were eventually collected in volumes like this. And it's very reminiscent. It's almost the same formula, where it's, like a little boy who meets the Micromen, or, in the case of the Transformers, a little boy who looks almost like he could be the younger brother of this kid. And, he meets the Transformers and then goes on little adventures alongside of them. That are sort of, these like done-in-one adventures where you sort of take on, this big evil robot and then destroy him, sometimes with, a substantial bit of sacrifice and a great deal of struggle and grit and guts and facing your fears, and then eventually, defeating them in a massive explosion and sort of save the day. In this case, this is kind of a nice ending, where one of the Micromen is dead, and there's some grieving, but then he comes back with a whole new outfit, a whole new setup, and maybe some explanation that they are, able to regenerate or rebuild themselves with replacement parts. And then this second one has the arrival of the Acroyer toy that the Marvel Acroyer is based on. And then there's the appearance of the, magnetic-based, interchangeable Microman figure, which is my favorite, which, these more recent Microman toys that are here are based on, and then these larger magnetically interchangeable ones of, Baron Karza and Force Commander were sort of based on that technology, taking it directly from the Jeeg toy, retooled for the Micronauts line. So This comic was a lot of fun. These comics are kind of pricey, and so I found this at a fairly affordable rate. Still kind of pricey. Checked it out. I enjoyed it, but I'm probably not going to go any further than this first volume unless I can find, like a substantially, discounted versions of the other ones. Like I said, it was fun. It was enjoyable, but there's not a lot of depth here. It is interesting to kind of look at this and compare it and really, see just what an amazing accomplishment it was that Bill Mantlo and Michael Golden did with their Micronauts comic. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, and Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, The Adventures of Adam Star and the Solar Legion. I'm also hard at work on WITCHMAN, a new superhero comic book, which recently had a successful Kickstarter campaign. I'll see you next time for Micronaut Monday, and Merry Christmas.